Hello and good evening. Today it is Tuesday, June 16th, 2020. And for this video today, what I would like to do is I would like to discuss the Arizona Cardinals in terms of their current uniforms, because I honestly feel that the Arizona Cardinals are long overdue for a drastic overhaul to their uniforms. And now that we've not only seen their quarterback, Kyler Murray, say that he would like to see them get new uniforms, but also now after witnessing a recent contest where sportslogos.net asked people to submit their ideas for a uniform redesign for the Cardinals, I thought it would be nice to sit down and film a video of my own to discuss the Cardinals uniforms, because in my opinion, it is definitely long overdue for the Cardinals to fix their uniforms, because especially now that we've seen the Buccaneers and the Cleveland Browns, who absolutely trashed their uniforms with awful Nike redesigns, now that those two teams have drastically fixed their uniforms and ultimately corrected the mistakes that they made by basically going back to what they had before they let Nike ruin their uniforms. Obviously, it was also the team's fault for approving their crap uniforms that both teams have had for far too long, and thankfully have both replaced their uniforms now for the upcoming 2020 season. But now that those two teams that I would argue had even worse uniforms than the Cardinals have fixed their uniforms, it definitely puts the spotlight back on the Cardinals again. And now that those two teams have fixed their uniforms, I certainly do feel myself that it is time for Arizona to do the same thing. Now, one thing about the Arizona Cardinals that I have learned about is that they have the franchise's history dates back 122 years. Starting out as an amateur football club, I believe, but they are one of the NFL's charter franchises that joined the NFL back in 1920 alongside the Chicago Bears. So later this year in September, the Cardinals will be celebrating an entire century of NFL history as a franchise. And when you look at the fact that they are one of the two remaining founding members of the NFL, alongside the Chicago Bears, who both joined the NFL in 1920, and you look at how the Bears have timeless uniforms, I feel it's not only time for the Cardinals to fix their uniforms, but it's also time for them, much overdue for them, to get their own timeless look of their own. And with the Green Bay Packers, they joined the NFL a year later in 1921. So you look at the Bears and you look at the Packers, both teams have absolutely timeless uniforms. And as I say that, though, I do want to quickly add one thing about the Packers. At least it's an opinion of mine. If the Dolphins can do their beautiful 70s throwbacks, if the Saints can do their Color Rush throwback jersey, and if the Browns can put the striping back on the sleeves of their jerseys, I think it's actually time for the Green Bay Packers to add the striping that they used to have on the sleeves of their jerseys back in the early 1990s, before they took those stripes off and have used the striping style that they now have been using for over 2 decades, close to 30 years now, if I'm not mistaken. But, if those teams can have the additional sleeve striping on their jerseys even in 2020, I think it would be amazing if the Green Bay Packers could follow suit and go back to that extra striping on the sleeves as well. But with the Cardinals, I just want to take some time here to go through their current uniforms. So I will go back to their alternates later on. But, you look at their main red jersey. I mean, it's full of piping. It's got these blocks of white in the armpit area. It's really not a pretty uniform. I mean, the red uniform is a lot better than the white one. But then you look at the white one, and it's even, in my opinion at least, it's even worse than the red home uniform. It's got the shoulder yoke, it's got the player names inside the shoulder yoke, it's got the side paneling and the piping, and it's got these weird curved stripes on the sides of their pants, and it's just not pretty. And then you look at what they used to wear before 2005 when they switched to their current uniforms 15 years ago. I mean, even though this was just a plain red jersey with white numbers and the player names in white lettering, you know, this entire uniform head to toe was nice and simple, and it was easy on the eyes. It wasn't an over-designed Reebok era disaster of a uniform. I mean, personally, if I were designing the Cardinals uniforms, I would actually have striping on the sleeves of both the home and away jerseys. And, you know, I honestly feel that the only thing that the Cardinals got right with their redesign that they've been wearing since 2005 is their updated logo. I would argue this is the best logo that the Cardinals have ever had. And this is the only thing they've gotten right, as well as the helmet itself. Everything below the helmet, in my opinion, whether it's their home jersey or home uniform, away uniform, alternate uniform, or their color rush uniform, which is an additional alternate uniform, I do feel all four of those need to go. You know, I mean, this photo doesn't really show you the sides of the jersey, and it's not as bad on the home uniform, but still, I mean, I'll get to it in another moment, but here's a chance to look at their old away uniform, which, as far as I know, they actually used to mostly wear white at home, if I'm not mistaken, because they used to play in an outdoor stadium, and ever since they've moved into their new stadium in, I believe, Glendale, Arizona, they have elected to wear red at home way more often than not now, and it's basically their designated home uniform with the rare exception. But you see, even before their old away uniform, well, their old white uniform, I'll call it, because I know they did used to wear it at home a lot more, because playing in an outdoor stadium in Arizona, the temperatures there are so damn hot, and a white uniform traditionally is cooler than anything else. So before, on their white uniform, they used to actually have blue striping. And I want to quickly mention and acknowledge the fact that this is the uniform that the Rams should have gone to full time with the matching away uniform instead of ruining their uniforms that they sadly have. But here's another look at the Cardinals' current home uniform. I mean, you've got the piping here and the little side paneling there, or armpit paneling, I'll call it. It's, you know, it's just not a great uniform. I mean, the red uniform is a lot better than the away uniform, but still, it is just not good. I'm also not a total lover of the numbering font either. And then we'll also take a look for a moment at what the Cardinals look like when they go monochrome red. Honestly, folks, for anybody wondering, I am absolutely not a fan, and I am so tired of monochrome red and monochrome in general across the NFL. It's become a really bad problem, in my opinion, because with the exception of the odd monochrome black uniform or monochrome navy blue uniform, monochrome red to me is a big no-no, and it looks horrible in this photo. At least, obviously, it's a case of beauty is in the eyes of the beholder, but to me, this is drop-dead ugly. Now, this is their color rush uniform. I will actually get to that in a moment. Here's another chance to look at their away uniform. It's just overdone, in my opinion. And there's another shot, and it's even worse than the home uniform, in my opinion, because you've got these big glaring side panels as well, eh? It's not pretty. And then you look at their old white uniform, and you know what? I'll get back to this in a little bit. What I want to do is I want to quickly acknowledge their main black alternate uniform. Well, the one that they've had the longest. Notice how it's got the white paneling in the armpit area and the red piping. As an alternate uniform, I think it's tolerable, but it's not great. And it's yet another uniform on top of the Cardinals' main uniforms that, in my opinion, needs to go. And then their color rush uniform, I mean, I like the idea of the Cardinals trying some type of new uniform, but, the red player names on the back should have at least been white. I don't mind red numbers, but red player names, I mean, I understand we live in a 4K high definition world and legibility isn't as bad as it used to be, but still, red player names on a black jersey is never a good idea in my opinion. And you know what? This uniform, in my opinion, is definitely not the greatest either. I mean, if they wore it with white socks, if they could actually wear it with white socks, it would be a little bit more tolerable, but still, I'm not a fan. But then you look at their old white uniform. Notice how it has the Arizona state flag on each sleeve. Personally, I would prefer if they did not bring the state flag back on the sleeves. I am actually not a fan of state flag logos on jerseys, personally. It's become a bit of a problem in the NHL in recent years. The Calgary Flames have been the worst offenders for the past 13 years, not only having awful uniforms, but also having an Alberta provincial flag on one shoulder and a Canada flag on the other. It's just a mess. Then the Colorado Avalanche have a state flag patch on the one shoulder of their current third, and the Carolina Hurricanes also have a state flag patch on the one shoulder of their third as well. Then the Florida Panthers also have a state flag-inspired patch on the arms of their current jerseys, and it's just, I'm not a fan of state flag logos on jerseys in general. So I don't agree with the likes of, say, Kyler Murray that it should be on their jersey. I would prefer if it wasn't, but obviously that's a matter of personal taste, eh? But my point is that, you look at their old white uniform, it's just such a better looking uniform. And it's really disappointing that we have now been stuck with this crap ever since 2005. And even their old red uniform, it's just, these are much, much nicer on the eyes. They really are. I guess it depends on what you, the individual viewer, likes. But to me, these uniforms definitely need to get an overhaul. They really do. The red uniform, their home uniform, is definitely the least worst of the bunch, but not by much. It's definitely not very good either, as far as I'm concerned. But another thing I want to mention too is that it was really nice to see sportslogos.net recently hold a contest asking people to submit their ideas for a redesign for the Cardinals. It was really nice to see that site alongside Kyler Murray both say that, hey, Arizona Cardinals, it's time for you to get new uniforms. And, the thing is that, in my opinion, when you are a franchise that is one of the original, very first members of the NFL as a whole, dating back 100 years this September, I think it's time for the Cardinals to not only get new uniforms, much better uniforms, but another thing too, I think it's time that they finally had a timeless, iconic, classic look of their own, alongside the Chicago Bears and also even alongside the Green Bay Packers. I think if there's any team that needs to have some type of timeless uniform, it's the Cardinals. But one thing, though, I do want to mention, though, is that since Nike has taken over, I honestly feel that most of the uniform redesigns that they've done have sadly been not very good. And one thing about a Nike redesign, I am a bit concerned that it would not be very good either, and it would be the type of thing that you'd want to see replaced in 5 years after the minimum amount of time has been the team has had to wear it for the minimum amount of time that they have to when they redesign their uniforms, which is 5 years as of right now in 2020, which personally, I think they should be allowed to do a redesign after every 3 seasons instead of every 5 seasons. I think that would be a lot better. I understand that from what I've learned, it's a 2-year redesign process for new uniforms in the NFL, and I think it's the same in the National Hockey League too, if I'm not mistaken. But I think that they can I think it should at least be 4 years instead of 5 years for a redesign, especially when I look at some really bad uniforms out there right now, such as the Tennessee Titans. And I would even argue that the Jacksonville Jaguars need to change their uniforms again. I mean, they are better than what they've replaced. At least those awful gold to black gradient things are gone. But you know what? They're just too plain now. But one thing about the Cardinals, I am a little bit concerned that if Nike does get their hands on their uniforms and tries to redesign them, I'm a little bit concerned that we're going to get new uniforms that are something you want replaced after 5 years, and that's not something I want to see. Now, it was great to see the concept submissions that did make the top 10 on sportslogos.net. But, in my opinion, I still have my doubts about Nike redesigning the Cardinals uniforms as I say this, which is frustrating because I think it's time for them to have a timeless look. But there is one thing I do want to do before I end this video, and I thought it'd be fun to show what I did because truth is I did submit a couple concepts of my own. And anyways, see, for me, if I was redesigning the Cardinals uniforms, I try to do something that is traditional, put some striping on the sleeves, and gives them a bit of more of a look that stands out. And another thing too that I also feel is something to note too is that, it was also great seeing somebody else think that the idea of Kachina striping on the Cardinals uniforms would be potentially really cool too. But I think a nice color scheme for the Cardinals would be cardinal red and silver with maybe a little hint of black somewhere, like I've put on the striping on the sleeves. Now, the other concept I want to show is the matching away uniform that I made here. I think something more like this, where they go cardinal red and silver, would be really nice. And you know what? Something like this would also help them stand out from the San Francisco 49ers, their division rivals, a little bit more. But yeah, I wanted to put this video together to discuss the Cardinals uniform situation because I think they've got a bloody mess of a uniform set, and it's not only time for them to get new uniforms, but I don't want to just see a typical Nike redesign. I want to see a pair of uniforms that are timeless, like the Green Bay Packers and like the Chicago Bears. I think it's time. And another thing as well, I do want to quickly take a moment to congratulate all of the concepts that did get featured on sportslogos.net. I feel that there were a lot of really good ideas there that I think would be really... I think most of the concepts that were featured would definitely be improvements over what the Cardinals have right now. And I'm not just saying that to be nice. I do genuinely mean that. And I do want to give a shout out to that guy who did have his concepts featured that actually thought that the idea of Kachina striping on a Cardinals jersey would be cool too. I think it would actually be really cool if it was done right, because it would be something that would make the uniforms an Arizona uniform, because this franchise has been in Chicago, it was in St. Louis for a long time, and then it relocated to Arizona in 1988, and I believe it was renamed as the Arizona Cardinals in either 1993 or 94. So, now that they are in Arizona, I think it'd even be cool to see them have a little bit of a unique Arizona flavor to their uniform if it's done right. But anyways, I'd love to hear what other people feel about this and about the Cardinals, because if there's anybody that's due for a change, I certainly feel it's the Arizona Cardinals 100%. So anyways, on that note, once again, huge congratulations to the concepts that were featured. There was some really cool ideas there, and it was really nice to see that other people do care about the Cardinals and do feel that they need new uniforms. And seeing that come from both their main quarterback, Kyler Murray, and sportslogos.net is awesome. And I believe that within the next 2 to 3 years, if Kyler Murray is saying it's time for a change, I have a funny feeling that the Cardinals are going to finally listen and do the right thing. I just hope that they don't let Nike ruin their uniforms, though. But anyways, folks, I hope that if you did stick around for this video, it was worth your time. And until my next video, as always, you guys take care. And of course, as always, folks, bye for now.